Now, ladies and gentlemen, normally at this time, you would hear the victory horns. Unfortunately, we don't have any victory horns to play you because there is no winner in the main event of Noche UFC. Main event between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko 2. A matchup that delivered in a lot of ways. One that, dare I say, delivered even more so than the first fight. But in the end, it all comes down to round 5. Looks like Valentina Shevchenko is going to cruise to victory. She's jabbing away. She's piecing Alexa Grasso up. And then she makes a mistake. And Alexa Grasso gets on top, almost gets her out of there, almost submits her. The final horn sounds. We go to the judges' scorecards. 1 for Grasso, 1 for Shevchenko. And then we get Mike Bell's card, 47-47. It is a split draw. And we're thinking to ourselves, this doesn't seem too terrible. Like maybe we can make a case for round 2, a 10-8 for Alexa Grasso. We'll wait till the cards come out. And then the great John Anik lets us all know it was round 5. Round 5 that was scored a 10-8. And if that card was scored the way everybody else on planet Earth scored it, a 10-9 for Valentina or a 10-9 for Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko is once again the flyweight champion of the world. But Alexa Grasso leaves as champion. She didn't get the official win, but much like in the world of professional wrestling, you got to beat the champ to win the belt, and you got to do it the right way. And we got ourselves a draw. We're going to react to all of it right now. Thank you for joining us for this live post-fight show. Appreciate you guys being patient with us. I am Mike Heck. Let us say hello to the rest of the panel. Mr. Shaheen Al-Shatti joining us. Shaheen, how are you, my friend? I'm sure you got all sorts of feelings going on after this draw and the scoring, especially this 5th round.
Yeah, I'm doing well, Mike. I'm glad to be on here. That was a hell of a fight, first of all. Like, I know we're going to get to the scoring and we're going to talk a lot about it, but man, that was a ton of fun, right? Like, in my opinion, I had it 3-2 Grasso. I could have seen 3-2 Shevchenko, but to end up in a split draw initially, I liked the result, but I didn't like the method that we got there, if that made sense. Because once it ended up with a split draw, it makes sense. But Mike Bell, man, what are you doing? What are you doing?
And a man who probably didn't love the card, but in hindsight, probably appreciates what this all means and just kind of going with the branding of what 2023 in the UFC and this sport has been. Another funny, crazy, absolute chaotic result. Mr. No Gray Area, Jed Meshew. How are we feeling about 25, 30 minutes after this result was scored, and even seeing the reaction of Sean Shelby to finding out this is going to be a draw?
I got a lot of feelings, just so many feelings. We'll get into that through all of this. The 2 most important things that I want to say is, first, we didn't need victory horns. We got the drums of competitive equilibrium, and that's totally fine. Like, we're right here, and that's okay. And 2, and most importantly, I think I'm about to get on this program and I'm about to defend Mike Bell. Not for what happened, because, look, it's a bad scorecard. But people, have you ever beefed? You ever screwed up? You ever looked at something and been like, that was a mistake? And not like looking back at your high school yearbook photo and thinking, man, a high top fade was probably not the move for me at the time. This is like I just immediately regret the decisions I made. And I'm staring down at this scorecard, and it's looking like if I score this a 10-9 for Grasso because she won the round, she's going to lose the belt. And that feels a little bad inside. So I'm just going to give an 8. And then it's all okay. We've all been there. Mike Bell took the opportunity to change a thing against all logic and reason because the outcome was the one he wanted to make happen. And, again, probably bad process, but we've all been there. I see you, Mike. I totally know what happened here, and I'm not going to crucify you for it, even though it's bad.
Shaheen, are you going to crucify Mr. Bell for this? Because I feel like Valentina Shevchenko might have some words for the man. And if you have seen Valentina Shevchenko's mindset, the fact that she still has not cracked a smile since she lost the belt, I think she might have some words for Mr. Bell. How are you feel when you found out it was round 5, Shaheen? Round 5. It almost like to me, it almost like soiled how good the fight was.
Yeah, that's
It
where
was
I'm
like,
at.
yeah, it was like a stunning thing. I was like, man, I guess you're giving round 2 a 10-8. Like, I don't love it, but I guess. But when I found out it was round 5, I'm like, it just like ruined the whole thing for me.
In a weird way, yeah. I think that's sort of where I'm at, right? Because you watch this fight, and all throughout it, the twists and turns, the ups and downs, the roller coaster nature of it, it was a tremendous fight. You know, I had it 1-1 after 2. Going into the final round, I had it 2-2. It felt like anything was up for grabs. These near submissions, knockdowns, it just the wild swings. It really felt like one of these moments of like, man, we are about to see who can dig deepest in this situation. This could be an all-time gut check moment for either one of these women, a true legacy fight sort of setup. And so as we exit this 5th round, it's just, you know, it was almost that thing of like Valentina Shevchenko had this wrapped up, right? Like she very much, it felt like she was about to win this fight, and then she made the same mistake, more or less, that she made in the last one, gives up her back again, and it's just like, oh my God, this is happening again. There's no way we can actually be seeing this play out again. Goes to the scorecards. I had it 3-2 Grasso, as I said, and then it just you hear the split draw. Takes a second to process it. Like, okay, this fight felt like it could have been a draw, right? Because I think 48-47 Shevchenko was a completely defensible scorecard. If she would have ended up winning the belt, I would have had absolutely no problem with it whatsoever. And so, okay, if you want to call this fight a draw, like I can sort of get there with you. But then it's just, again, it's what you said. It's the method by which we got there that almost makes this, it ruins what to me was one of the best flyweight title fights that we've seen in maybe ever, at least it's certainly in a long time for this women's division, right? Like that was such a great fight. I was on riding such a high afterwards. And then right now, I just don't know how to feel. And I'm reminded of, I think it was like 2013. I've been in this a bit, so I've seen some of these fights. 2013 when Mark Hunt and Bigfoot Silva just went to absolute war in Australia, just absolute chaos type of fight. Pure scenes. And then at the end, a few of the judges gave the final round a 10-8 to Mark Hunt, just to sort of end up at a draw, even though it wasn't a 10-8. It was like, hey, this fight was so much fun. It feels like it should be a draw. We're just going to figure out a way to make it a draw. And it's like, that's cool. That was fine in that moment. It's a very low stakes heavyweight fight. It wasn't for a title or anything like that. I can accept it in that moment. This one though, man, I don't know. I don't know.
Normalize that. Normalize that. Shaheen, what I'm hearing from you right now is not it's you just trying to work your way process, and what you need to get to the end result, which is if we didn't know what rounds were scored, if they just gave us the scores at the end, we'd all be happy.
Fine. Would have been
so
fine.
let's just live in that world. I don't need to read like when I get a bill, I don't go and look through line by line the items. I don't got time for that. They're going to charge me whatever they're going to charge me, and whatever the number at the bottom, that's all I'm concerned
maybe think about doing that when you get a bill.
Not necessary, because I that's not how I choose to live my life. I don't get caught up in the minutia of things. Sheen, I'm here about the end result, and the end result's fine. We should all be happy with it. Let me tell you, I'm probably more happy with that than if Valentina like wins the belt, and then this discourse for the next 3 weeks or however long is, well, did she really deserve to win? Because I didn't think she did. I scored it 3-2. I gave dueling 10-8s in rounds 2 and 3, but I thought Grasso should have retained. Either way, the answer is these two women will be fighting a third time. And now, we just have this to talk about tonight. It's a great outcome. We should all be very happy with the draw. We are just too reflexively against draws in this sport because it feels, like Ted Lasso said.
But I don't think that's the thing. I disagree, because I'm not against draws. I tweeted it in the moment. Like, I felt pretty good about the draw. Like, that was a pretty good result ultimately. If you're going to throw it up in the air, and it seemed like everyone was kind of like, this could go either way. Like, I can accept the draw in that moment, especially because if you just put it out in the ether of, hey, there was a 10-8 somewhere, you could bring back a lot of results, right? You scored 2 different 10-8s. I think there were multiple rounds there where if you felt like throwing a 10-8 out in, it's not the craziest thing in the world. It just wasn't round 5 where Valentina Shevchenko won half the round and then Alexa Grasso won half the round. That's not a 10.
She won more than half the round. She won 65% of the round. I'm not a math guy. Don't trust me on that. But 3 minutes and 30 seconds of the round she won.
For the, I see some comments saying, well, where's the press conference? See, the beauty of tonight is, and the beauty of this show, and you see the little duck in the corner, is we could do both at the same time. We figure out a way to do it. So if you want,
Get you a
I don't like to
website that
tell
can do
people,
both.
yeah, get you a website that can do both. I don't like to tell you to leave what I'm doing to go do something else, but at least we're going from one thing on our website to the other. So if you want to watch post-fight press conference, you can go ahead and do that. You could do that right now, or you could stay here and join us. And guess what? You could watch it later. It's all there for you. All the options are aplenty. And Jed, it's amazing to me that you have found, are you the new Prince of Positivity? You found a silver lining in all of this.
Feels like
you found a silver lining in all this, and I think it's a good one. I think it's a
great
good
outcome
one
for me.
Almost
I can't lose.
This pretty much guarantees we're going to get a third fight, because I think you
and
have to do it now.
And this fight was awesome. Like, their first fight wasn't that fun. Like, it was very high stakes and tense. This fight was really tense down the stretch. Like, heading into that 5th round, when scorecards were sort of all over the place, and even more so than we knew, apparently. And it felt to me, and I think largely what and turned out actually to be true, that kind of win the 5th, you're going to end up winning this fight. And so, like, it had just built, and there were big epic moments, in the first fight. Really, there was the moment, the finishing moment, which was this, crescendoing experience. And I was on the wrong end of that, and I was very sad about it. This one, there were swings, and there was back and forth, and I'm live blogging. And after round 2, when Grasso drops her and then kind of puts it on her for a lot of the rest of the round, and Shevchenko dives in a double and just holds on for dear life from top position, like, I'm writing, and man, she didn't look great in the corner. That's a really bad round. Is this the moment when time has just caught her by? She just got dropped, blah, blah, blah. She needs my exact words were, Shevchenko needs a really big something to happen in the 3rd to change this. And then she immediately gets that in the 3rd. She comes out and has her best round of the fight, gets that guillotine that gets extremely close, in my opinion, not for the whole part of it, but there was certainly a time when she's immediately rolling to mount where it's like, that's bad. And then she has back control for, 2.5, 3 minutes or whatever. And I know that we had this argument at the beginning of the year. I'm sorry. If someone's on your back for 3 minutes, you lose the round. And in my opinion, you lose the round by a 10-8 measure, because that's all defense all the time, baby. And so there were ebbs and flows, and the 4th round was super competitive. And then the 5th, Shevchenko has pulled away. It's just like out of sort of nowhere. Her best round for a lot of it was that 3rd round. She was moving the best. The jab just couldn't miss. Grasso didn't really have answers. And then Shevchenko does the dumbest thing possible and goes to a move that has cost her fights before. And it all, like, I thought it cost her. I wrote at the end, I was like, she heaved a belt. She was winning this fight. She was going to win the 5th round, and she just threw it out the window. And we're in the Alexa Grasso era. And then this happened. And I feel like it's pretty close to the right outcome. I don't think either woman, like, truly asserted themselves much more than the other over the totality of the fight. If I'm picking one, I do think Grasso should have won. So I'm happy in that regard. She didn't lose the belt, and we get to do this all again. And it's a great matchup. It's a great fight. And I'm fine with it, because also, we'll talk about this more later, but Erin Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot, that's going to be fun. And then we'll have, like, a no doubt about it. Here's our path to a title. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's very clean. So I'm okay with this. It was a good night, man.
Manon Fiorot, like, low key, the biggest, not even low key, high key, the
Not even
biggest
low- not even
loser
low key.
of the night. Because sure, she doesn't get her title shot, neither does Erin Blanchfield. But you said this when we were in pre-show, Jed.
She got to fight Erin.
Now she gets to fight Erin Blanchfield, which is not a great consolation
Gets to.
prize from maybe where you thought you were headed.
Plus, she didn't screw up. Like, Shevchenko's a big loser, but she went for that dumbass head and arm throw. So she's at fault for that. Manon's just minding her own business, beating the women that they keep putting in front of her. And now it's like, hey, sorry about that whammy.
I will have to say, too, if we're just trying to Prince of Positivity this, there is one other positive outcome to this that I'm now deeply intrigued in, because, Mike, you sort of alluded to it when we were setting this up, of Valentina was a very different Valentina this week, and maybe the lead up than she has been in a long time. She was very intense, very focused. A lot of the interviews looked like interrogation scenes, to use a phrase from our own Slack room. I was deeply intrigued by sort of the Valentina we were getting in this. And now she's only going to be more pissed off, because now there's 2 fights in a row where she feels probably like in both instances she was the better fighter, and yet she didn't win either of them. So the lead up to the 3rd fight, she's going to just be carrying around a pistol and going to shoot somebody more or less. Like I can't fathom the level of frustration she's going to be throughout the lead up to the next one, because there is going to be a next one. Like, let's not kid ourselves right at this point, right? Like, she is the greatest champion this division has ever seen. I think there's a real case she could have won this fight even if I didn't score it for her. The whole way that this 5th round was the decider, this is going to be a 3rd fight, and she's just going to be the most salty person in the lead up to it, and I'm super here for it.
She's going to have a freaking mohawk. It's going to be incredible. She's going to do something wacky with the hair. She's going to be a whole different person. And for a UFC schedule, especially on the back end of 2023 that is kind of unknown, we might have another option here. If we need to throw in a title fight, maybe not as a main event, but as a co-main for December, like if we can't get O'Malley on there, you can chuck this one in there as the co-main event to Sean Strickland versus DDP or whatever ends up being the main event of December, because we don't know. So this is just another additional fight that we can add to the equation, unless you want to wait till January and do it in Toronto, but it doesn't really seem to make sense to do it in Toronto.
It is
almost back again though. That's just, it's not weird. Like a fast turnaround, but it is quick.
3 months.
Yeah, but I mean, like if they want to take any time at all, that's 3 months to get right back in. It's just
they took a decent.
I mean, you could do March.
You could do March. A decent amount of damage in this fight. It might take them a bit.
Yeah, but January's gonna be in Toronto. Yeah, February will probably be in like Australia again. So maybe March in Vegas, we do it again.
Do it in Australia. It's fine. Who cares?
It does kind of feel like we have the makings here of essentially what happened on the men's side of flyweight, right? Where we have this weird trilogy with Moreno and Figueiredo that ends up being
Shevchenko
this
pulls out a win. Yeah.
Like if this ends up being 1-1-1, we kind of have to figure it out at that point, right? Like
Aaron Blanchfield is going to be fuming, just beating poor women senseless and just looking and be like, I would murder them. Just let me at them. Please, coach, let me in.
Blanchfield, man, the Toja of this whole division right
now. Let me tell you, there are very few things I want to see more than, and again, we're talking to the #1 Valentina Shevchenko stand for like a decade at this point. I just desperately want to see her try head and arm toss Aaron Blanchfield and see how bad that goes for her. Because Valentina has a lot of abilities, but the moment someone gets like on top of her, she is cooked. Every second Grasso has been on top, she has been just obliterating this poor woman. So, Aaron, I'm sorry. You're the champion in my heart. Just give it some time.
Look, we're going to go back to all of this because we're going to be joined by someone in a little while who actually stands. He's okay with the 10-8 in round 5, stands by it, says it's okay. And we're going to bring that man in for him to share his wisdom with all of you in a matter of moments. But before we do that, co-main event, another very, very close fight, Shaheen. Jack Della Maddalena versus Kevin Holland. Super close fight. Could have gone either way. I saw somebody score at 30-27 for Holland. That is an awful scorecard. So maybe not put that out there in the public eye anymore. But 29-28 either way is okay. But JDM gets the win, Shaheen. Did the judges get this right? Did you score for JDM? And what did you think of his performance, especially considering how people kind of viewed him after his most recent fight where he went to another split decision with the newcomer and some people thought he lost that fight?
Yeah, I mean, I did score for him. I scored a 2-1 for him, 29-28. It was a good win for him. I think it is one of those fights where you look at the statistics and maybe the statistics don't tell the whole tale, but they certainly tell a little bit of the tale, right? And I think one thing, I mean, we were talking about it amongst ourselves, the optics of the game plan with which Kevin Holland approached this fight with, he was going to have to fight more or less a perfect fight to get that decision, just because when that is sort of the approach you're taking, fighting that defensively and also just sort of turning your back and running and doing a lot of the shoulder rolling things that he was doing. It's just not easy for the judges to pick that up in real time. And just optically, they will always tend to go favor the man who is marching forward, the man who they view as sort of being the aggressor. And also, I mean, it was just, deep kicks and all of the stuff that Kevin was working and landing I just don't know that goes a long way with a lot of the judges. So it's a tough fight, man. That's another one. Could have gone either way, but I did have that 29-28, and it's a good bounce back for JDM, though I do wonder if the last two have maybe slowed this roll a little bit, because it felt like we were getting hot and heavy with the JDM is going to be a future champion talk pretty hard after his first few UFC fights. And I think now maybe it is a moment to settle down on that. Like, he's certainly someone who's going to matter in this division, certainly, and he has a long way to go. He has a long future ahead of him. But I think this was a good indication that, hey, like, let's take some time here. This isn't something we need to rush.
Jed, you were very hard on JDM. You questioned his fight IQ. Are you back on track here? Did he show you enough to be a little bit easier on him here after this performance, or you still have questions?
I mean, I still have questions, but this is exactly the performance you want to see from him. This was a super disciplined fight from him, which, I think a lot of people guessed, and you could have guessed that he got an earful from his coaches at the end, because they were telling him during the fight, stop doing this dumb shit, man. And so, he went back to the well, and again, very, very disciplined performance. He clearly had stuff that he had worked on and was trying to do, and then trying to figure out this fight in a way that best benefited his skills. With Shaheen, I think Kevin Holland's approach to this fight was both good and bad. It was good in that it was a really competitive fight, and I think there is an argument that he won the fight, but I was really confident. We were talking about on the Slack that the judges would not score this fight. I scored it for JDM. And I think the way that Kevin Holland was fighting was not conducive to success for most people, because the optics are pretty poor. Luke Thomas this week on one of his shows was talking about Sean Strickland and the Philly shell. And it's really great. Go listen to him talking about it. But one of the things that really stood out to me, particularly in the context of this fight, is Strickland's Philly shell caused a ton of problems defensively for Israel Adesanya. And I think we saw the same for Holland, but the primary difference between those two and the way they employed them is Strickland's Philly shell was used almost entirely moving forward. And one, that's pretty rare. And two, that still gave him the initiative in most of the exchanges to parry, slide, slip, and get off a 1-2, get back at him. Whereas Holland's was almost exclusively moving backwards. And so instead, it just created more opportunities for JDM to continue throwing in combination. That is something JDM has always been really good at and will keep doing. If you are close enough to hit, he will keep punching you until you are no longer close enough to hit or you're unconscious. And so even though Holland was blocking a lot of that, those combos that happen, it just looks like a dude is teeing off on you and you're trying to cover up and run away. And that's not the same as Strickland doing that against Izzy, basically. So thought it was a really disciplined performance from JDM. Really good performance. Still have tons of questions. And I will say that the Basel fight tempered me on my expectations for him, but this is still a dude who's going to hang around at the top 10 of this weight class for years to come. And honestly, outside of the tactical choices that I disagree with from Kevin Holland, very solid fight from him. Still looks good. He's this guy who can still make noise in in the welterweight division. Just might want to rethink some of how he's approaching some fights sometimes, because it does appear that every couple of times he gets caught up in something that's probably not the best way to go about fighting. You probably shouldn't try and do a kickboxing match with Stephen Thompson for 4 rounds and just get battered around the head. Probably could have gone to more takedowns or had a more aggressive game plan against JDM here, but fun fight.
Yeah, in discipline, it seems like is the imperative word, the key word that you kept using, right? Because I think that was a very legitimate questions that were being asked regarding JDM after that last one, right? Where it was a very puzzling fight IQ that we saw from him in that half his fight, very puzzling decisions throughout the fight. And that was one of those takeaways coming from that of is this who this guy is, or was this just a weird circumstance with a short notice opponent for a guy who cut weight twice in 2 weeks? I was willing to give him a mulligan after that last one of this potentially being a weird circumstance. And what we saw tonight, I think, is a good return to form for okay, yeah, that seemed to be an aberration comparatively with what we saw tonight of what was a very intelligent fight from Jackie 3 Names.
As far as bonuses go, all the finishers got bonuses, all of them. So good on them.
Hey, finish bonuses.
Finish bonuses. Raul Rosas Jr., who we're going to talk about in a moment, Daniel Zellhuber, Lupi Godinez, Roman Kopylov, and Charlie Campbell, who channeled The Rock and kind of made DC look a little silly, but DC with a great comeback. I thought he did a great job in that moment as well. Real quick, before we bring in our special guest and take some questions, Raul Rosas Jr., Jed Meshew, in the featured spot. This is perfect matchmaking, Jed, was it not? I mean, this is tremendous because Raul Rosas Jr. needed to come back. He needed to come back in a big way. Got to show his hands. He got a knockout win. It's only the second of his career. Usually he's just going out and subbing dudes. And boy, did he have a great dance partner in Terrence Mitchell, who just the perfect guy to get him over. I think Terrence Mitchell should have a job with the UFC for the rest of his life. As long as he wants to continue fighting, I think Terrence Mitchell has a permanent place in this company because of what he did tonight and what he could do for guys like Raul Rosas Jr. or anybody else who gets into the octagon with him. Jed, what did you think of that fight?
I think about 6 years ago, maybe, I wrote in, I formerly did Missed Fists with AK Lee before I was unceremoniously thrown out of that endeavor. But at the time, we were talking about something, and I think it was like a Bellator prelim, and I don't remember who, but whoever it was just got their doors blown off in spectacular fashion. And I wrote a thing that I've come to believe is one of my great offerings to the MMA world, and that's, look, being a good fighter is all well and good, and you want to have many of those if you're a promotion. But what you really want to have, you want to have stars, Conor McGregor stars. And then right after that, you want to have people who lose in good fashion. You don't want to have tough outs who are going to like have boring fights. You want to have guys who you can call in and get smashed. And and look, I don't care how disrespectful this is to Terrence Mitchell. I am sure he is a lovely young man, and I hope the best for him and his family. But anyone with two working eyeballs and the ability to actually read could have looked at his Tapology and said, I know where this is going. And it has nothing. I mean, yes, the betting line could have clued you in, but you look at his career is Alaska Fighting Championship. Honestly, a really enjoyable promotion. I don't know if they still do. They used to have events on Fight Pass. It was very funny to watch them all the time. Enjoyable, not good. All of it's in Alaska Fighting Championship. He gets called into tough for the Tournament of Champions, loses to Kai Kara-France in 30 seconds. The first, here's a prospect, 30 seconds blows his doors off. Goes back to Alaska, fights in Alaska again, gets pulled in against 8-0 Cameron Simon, super prospect, gets his doors blown off in 30 seconds. The point is to have this man fight somebody you're trying to get over, a young, talented prospect. And I'm not sure how talented Raul Rosas Jr. is. We can get into that in a little bit, but he was obviously going to do this the whole time. And that is a skill set you should pay for if you're the UFC. Just have this dude come in every 6 months to fight the next young dude who you want to get a big win on Mexican, Independence Day, Noche UFC event, or whatever the next one of those they're doing. He should have a job forever.
Someone is saying we're overselling a win for Raul Rosas Jr. We're not. We're
overselling
the loss. We're overselling Terrence as being a valuable commodity here.
Exactly, because I have in my notes of this, people are way too high on Raul Rosas Jr. coming off of this. Like, I saw a lot of comments after this being like, wow. I was like, you guys remember he was a -800 favorite and we all knew this was going to happen? And like, sure, credit to doing the thing that you're supposed to do, but like, maybe pump the brakes on that a bit. But yeah, this has nothing to do with Raul Rosas. This is everything to do with Terrence Mitchell and his unique set of skills, which are extremely valuable.
What did you think of Raul Rosas Jr., Shaheen? Go ahead.
Yeah, I will give the 18-year-old who did something pretty well on a big stage some credit, because I certainly couldn't have done anything remotely like that at age 18, right? I continue to be like, I understand Terrence Mitchell is Terrence Mitchell. Like, we're not going to oversell what this was, but the poise showed by that man, that teenager, is continually impressive to me, because he is doing all of this on a stage where most 18-year-olds, like, I couldn't even tell you. Never mind. I was going to say something. I was doing some weird shit at age 18, as we all were, right? Like, come on, man. What were you doing at age 18? I couldn't have been answering. I couldn't have been answering all these questions from the media and being the sole focus of the week and like all of this stuff. Cause like we all sort of see the metrics, we see the views. Like people are very interested in Raul Rosas Jr. Any content revolving around this kid does well. His scrum usually does the best of the group. Like whatever this is, people are invested in this kid's journey, and he is still just a kid. And so for him to continually be able to not only handle that with a level of aplomb that is pretty damn impressive, if we're just being honest with ourselves, but show out on moments like this where, yeah, he was a fight where he was designed to show out. But either way, he still did it. And that, to me, like that was a violent 18-year-old I saw tonight, man. That kid was putting some aggression out in that fight. Like that was some frustration of having all these adults just asking him questions about why did you lose for a good 6 months or however long it's been. I was impressed by it, man. Like we're not going to oversell it. We're not going to overhype it. We're not going to say what it was, say it was something that it wasn't. This is still someone who is very, 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 very far from becoming the finished product that he will be, and very far from becoming a person who matters in this division in terms of contention. But I don't know, man. If you can get an 18-year-old out there who can put on a performance like that in front of the world, I'm impressed by it.
It's just how the world's going these days, Sheen. It's all going to be children. It's all children in every sport now, It's just it. They're better prepared for this. So, look, it was great. I'm not here to downplay his thing. Just like we can find a happier medium than this. You match this dude up well, he's guaranteed to be big star and a champion. Like, I don't know. People were pumped about Sage Northcutt, and here we are with Sage Northcutt.
Yeah, but what was Sage Northcutt, like 22, 23? I feel like there's a big difference.
I feel like if there's a big difference, if that is less in the favor of the 18-year-old, honestly, like he might wake up tomorrow and just not want to do. I've said this all the time. Like he probably won't keep fighting, but he's 18. Like might wake up and be like, I want to be a race car driver or and try and do that. He can do anything. That's what being 18 is. So I just want to see him keep fighting, keep winning. And if every once in a while you throw him a can to crush and he gets to do this and it's great, then that's fine. But, just don't need to say this guy's a future star. Because just keep performing. Because I also have no idea
certainly
how
an
much
intrigue,
of this, that's the thing. He's definitely an intrigue. I don't know how much of that intrigue is sustainable once he is no longer 18-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. or 19-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. Because it feels weird to be like 20-year-old Raul Rosas Jr., Like, I don't.
Well,
is there just a 2-year? Right? Yeah. Is there just? I want to be clear. If he's really good for a long time, I'm keeping up the bit. 35-year-old Raul Rosas Jr. Like we're just gonna do that. But I think a lot of it, at least at this point, feels to me a bit, gauche and he's 18 years old. I want to look at this, and I don't know if that keeps up as that no longer becomes true. But it's a good performance, a great bounce back, and great hat. I would say with Khabib out of the game, that sombrero is top 2 hats in MMA right now.
It was a good hat. I mean,
ultimately,
this night was not even with this fight. This whole night was built around either the fights are really competitive or there were squash matches. Right. Like that's it. Like that's what this card is built to be. There's only what did we say, Jed? Outside of the main event, the co-main event, and the Cortez Jasudavicius fight, with Chase Cortez, great. That fight was awesome. And they probably should have got a fight of the night. But every single favorite was like minus 250 or above.
Something in that neighborhood. Yeah.
And the one fight I thought was misaligned was the one that the dog cashed, and it was Kyle Nelson. I thought him being plus 250 or whatever it was, or plus 200 was, I thought that line was a little too wide. But this is what the night was supposed to be.
Kept me from a perfect night,
fun.
Kyle Nelson.
Dude.
Yeah, it was
ultimately,
good.
It was a fun night. This I loved that the UFC did this, and in execution, it played out in a really cool and fun way where this felt big. This was more or less just a fight night, right? It's a fight night type of card with a really, really, really good main event, right? Like this is a championship fight underneath just what is essentially an Apex card. But the way they designed it, the production around it, just all of the little features with it and everything that sort of went into it to make it special. All we ask for every single week is for the UFC to make things feel special. We see your financial reports. We understand that you guys are making billions of dollars. Like it's ridiculous the amount of money that this corporation is making to reinvest it into the sport in a way that a night like this, free for everybody more or less, like free with a subscription, obviously, but free title fight. Really cool setup. Squash matches galore, but it was a great crowd. They were super fired up. This felt like a big fight night. This felt more or less, it had a pay-per-view type of vibe. And to be able to give us something like that on ESPN Plus, I love that, man. I hope that they do more of this. I hope that they see how much all of us enjoyed this and lean farther into it, and we can get regional variants like this, just cards that are sort of specialized in this way and feel different than UFC Apex 4000, where we're seeing the same people fight over and over again in front of nobody. Like this was cool. This was different. And all I ever ask for the UFC is cool and different.
Yeah, this is fun. I loved the ceremonials being outside, the mariachi band, like everything about it was just cool. Like more fun. Give us more fun. We'll all be very happy.
Look, if we're not doing a Bastille Day card next July with all the pomp and circumstance, what the hell are we even doing here? Like
it's a great point.
Just go to Nice. You don't even have to do it in Paris if that's too hard. As they are celebrating. Just come on, make it happen, guys. This was great. It's wonderful. It's a really fun time. It all worked out. I had a great time tonight, and I don't care about the.
I had a great time.
A draw, so it was really really enjoyable set of.
I had a great time.
On.
Mike Bell's even though trying to ruin my great time, but I had a great time.
Mike Bell, yes. Apparently, Valentina Shevchenko is at the press conference, just ripping Mike Bell and judges in general. So check that out. How did we feel about the heel turn?
How did we feel about the heel turn? Because I mean, look, she's a salty loser.
She's planting seeds, dude. She's planting seeds for the next fight.
Look, I get it. I don't think that's the pure explanation of in a fair and just world, I am the winner. Like that was she just straight up was like, I think the judges felt pressured because of Mexican Independence Day, and that's why this happened. I was robbed
balls.
I was robbed by the fucking cowards sitting in the judges' chairs tonight. That's basically what she said.
Did you hear the reaction from the crowd?
Yeah.
So I missed
it. Incredible heel promo.
I missed it, and I was watching. I had the captions on, so he goes, "So yeah." All I saw was like, "Oh, it's Mexican Independence Day," and I was like, "Oh, she's shouting out the day in the fighters." And then I went back and rewound it, and I was like, "Oh, now I understand why the crowd was like, what the hell was that? Like that was completely out of nowhere."
She is not here for anyone's bullshit. She is not here for your bullshit, my bullshit, and their bullshit. And I kind of appreciate it, frankly. Like that takes incredible balls to just go up there and say that.
So the thing is, I appreciate it. I can't think of one that was more like, do you want to infuriate a good amount of people watching this? Like I cannot think of another fight that was more designed to
maybe Colby in Brazil.
Yeah, but that's
so
a performative. It's stupid. Like this felt from her soul.
Shtick.
Yeah, this was just her.
Yeah. She genuinely believed everything she said.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, speaking her truth of I was robbed by the cowards in the judges' chairs who didn't want to cause a riot in Las Vegas or whatever.
I wish she would have specifically just found them and pointed to them and been like, "You guys, you need to explain to me."
That would have been the best. She just goes and finds Mike Bell and just stands over him. He's like, "Tell me now." Puts a microphone in his face and forces him to give an explanation. At least that'd be a change. That would be nice.
I gotta say, yeah, that wouldn't be. She would be doing a better job than anyone else has ever done with these judges. What an incredible job these people have, really, to where you can be doing something so deeply important to so many people, something that meaningfully impacts so many different people's lives. And you could just be so flippant with it, where it's like, hey, this doesn't really make sense, but it feels fun. And it's going to lead to some cool talking points for people. I'm going to do it. And then I'm just going to walk out and no one will ever get to ask me any questions about it ever. And there will be zero accountability. And then it's just, we all move on. What a cool job. I wish I had that level of non-accountability for my job. It'd be great.
Shaheen, think about what you just said. That's why I'm okay with what Mike Bell did. Because that I would do exactly the same thing the whole time. If I was in that position, I would just do whatever I wanted because it felt right. So I get it, Mike Bell. I understand where you're coming from, buddy. I see you. No one else does, but I get you.
I think we have set up a perfect transition here because we're talking about speaking truths and saying what you feel and being your true self. So at this point,
love
it's
this
time to bring in the
truth.
man who's been patiently waiting since we began. He's been sitting in the green room, the virtual green room. This is a man who's actually defending Mike Bell. He's defending Mike Bell. There he is right there.
Look
He's
at
defending.
this.
He's defending the 10-8 fifth round. He said, and I quote, I got no issue with it. I have no issue with it. I can see a 10-8 fifth round. So Casey Leiden, producer extraordinaire, gets to sit in the co-host seat today. Please explain yourself to the people. Have you been talked out of this take at all? Because we almost got like verbal fisticuffs during these takes.
Actually, I think the only person that scored this fight correctly was Jed Meshew.
Nailed it. That's right. This is another
This
instance.
is not what you said earlier.
You're right. It is not what I said. But Jed did make a good point.
I'm right.
Round 3 was the rounds of deep. Round 3 was around the deep gilly, right? That was round 3.
Yes.
Deep gilly and the extended back control.
Extended back control. Okay. I just want to remind people, we at home have a better view of the fight than the actual judges do.
That's very
We
true.
don't know where the
It
judges are
is so
sitting.
deeply hard to judge a fight at a fight.
It really is. It really
It's
is.
very dumb.
It's
very
kind of
dumb.
silly how
That
we
sentence,
at
the
home we
fact
have a
that
better
that
view.
sentence is true isn't dumb.
And, yeah.
It's just a dumb
And
thing.
if you've ever had a chance if you get an opportunity to sit cage side for a major fight, you'll realize this. Go, oh, I think this guy's winning. And I guess I'll have to watch it at home to be confident, because you just don't know when you're there. And I'm going to assume Mike Bell, from his angle, thought that choke was just, talking about round 5, was just in super duper deep. And that's why he gave it a 10-8. And the guillotine attempt in the back mount or whatever in round 3, he just didn't feel quite made the 10-8 jump from 10-9 to 10-8. And this goes back to a bigger issue why I hate the 10-point scoring system, because how can round 1 be scored the same way as round 5 or round 3? But that's a larger, stupider issue that will never get resolved. But all I'm saying is I think it's justifiable. I didn't score round 5 a 10-8. I did score the fight for Grasso overall, but I think the right person, quote unquote, still won. So that's kind of where
Nobody being
didn't
the right
lose.
person.
Or
the right
didn't
person,
lose.
the right person didn't lose. Rather. Yeah. Okay. I admittedly, as soon as this started, when we were off air, I went a little harder in the paint. I
You
guess.
really did.
Yeah.
Well, I was
You
kind of shocked.
absolutely did.
Yeah, you guys came after me hard too. You're going, yeah. So, but
You were digging it.
Well, at least you.
hard.
Okay, so the point we were making,
I
and by the way,
I was emotional. That's why we get it.
We
out
all
before
were.
We go air.
We all were.
It was fun.
Jed, real quick, for those who don't know, how did you score the fight? Just so we can go back to this.
I scored the fight 47-46 for Grasso. It is another of many instances where I am the only person with the correct scorecard on MMA decisions. If you could, I don't know if they let you search like my name there, but you're going to find a whole litany of those because I'm doing it right and everyone else isn't. I gave rounds 2 and rounds 3 10-8s, dueling 10-8s. I gave round 2 a 10-8 for Alexa Grasso because under the rules, I am absolutely within my rights to give her that round based on how scoring criteria works. And I think that round had substantially more impact and dominance that led to an effect that was tangible, and so scored that at 10-8. Similarly, I think the third round where Shevchenko got the very tight guillotine and then spent 3 minutes in back control, which is an asymmetrical position that Alexa Grasso had no answer for and no offense. I felt that was enough dominance and duration to warrant a 10-8 round. I am actually at least somewhat on board. I think that it is not entirely unreasonable to score round 5 a 10-8. I think it is unreasonable to score that at 10-8 and not score 2 or 3, as those were more clearly dominant rounds. I could be talked into it. Why I didn't give that a 10-8 is because up until the first 3 minutes and 30 seconds of that round were pretty clearly Shevchenko dummying Grasso for large portions of that with the jab. And so I just went 10-9, but I thought Grasso probably won 3 rounds, and That's why I'm like fine with what happened. I don't think she should have lost her belt. It wouldn't have been the worst scorecard ever if she did, but I think she did enough, had enough big moments in that fight to deserve to retain.
That's why this
Shaheen.
is all so dumb. Like all of this is so dumb
Yeah.
because there are so many defensible, easily explainable ways we could have reached sort of the result we reached. Round 2, 10-8 is super defensible. I think there's a very clear case for that. Round 3, 10-8 is also very defensible. The whole thing
Here's
is
the-
just
That's the thing, Shaheen. I've come around on the 10-8 scoring system in MMA. I think it's very fraught and a super complicated thing. And I think it's not the best, but I think it can be ported over fine. The problem is creating a system that is, for a large portion of its history, is too restrictive on 10-8 rounds. And that's dumb because boxing is 3-minute rounds, which is substantially different than 5 minutes. And boxing has a very clear structure of how rounds get weighted more. A fighter gets dropped, that round goes down. And that actually works in the whole combination of the system of boxing because, hey, that guy got dropped. If you got dropped, it was clearly real, and thus it deserves more weight. It's much more fluid. And now this let's bring some ambiguity into when it should be. It should just be pretty clear. Like, hey, if this fighter did substantially more of something than the other, then that's a 10-8 round. And just add more of them in, and this gets so much cleaner holistically. And it's just really frustrating.
well, so I have a question for all y'all, and then I have two statements that are separate. Question: Pride rules, which are the ultimate rules,
Grasso.
the king's rules,
Grasso.
the rules of the greats. Who won?
Alexa Grasso.
Grasso for sure.
Probably
I hate
Grasso.
I
Probably
hate pride
Grasso.
rules. I hate pride rules. I think pride
Probably
rules.
Grasso.
are
Well, I
pretty dumb.
hate you.
They're dumb. Look, here's the big problem with pride rules is that pride rules say that it's like who won the fight as a whole, but that just functionally is who won the last 3 minutes and look like they would
No,
be winning
it's
if the fight
super
kept
not.
going on.
That is super
It's-
not how stuff played out often.
It
in Pride.
largely translates out. But I think under either term, Grasso won. But
I-
yes, Grasso won the fight.
I think Grasso won the fight.
rules.
Yeah, by pride rules.
Then
yes.
Two just quick
Schoolyard
asides.
rules, Grasso won the fight. Schoolyard rules
Yeah,
for sure.
definitely.
Who do you want to
Schoolyard
be?
rules,
Who would you have rather been at the end of the fight? Who? That's sort of where I always see it. Two quick asides.
I would still rather be Shevchenko because Grasso has a cut and stitches suck. And I don't think Shevchenko is cut, but she got
Yeah,
beat
pretty lumped
first.
up. She was pretty lumped up,
Shevchenko took like 20 knees to the head trying to play the
and
game.
that was
That
so.
was
That was
slick
one of
as
my
hell,
first
by the
statements.
way.
The two asides I have. One,
Who was the ref again? Who
I
was the ref again? Sorry.
absolutely
Herb. It
loved
was Herb.
that.
Herb Dean had a great night. Great night, Herb Dean.
Perfect refereeing by Herb Dean, and I love that that's the rule now because those knees were sick in round
Yep.
4. That was monstrous. I hope we see more of that because you saw Valentina like trying to play the game, and Herb just being like, "Nah, you got to deal. Like you put yourself in this position."
Yeah.
That was killer, man. I loved that. The aggression, like the instinct to do that, is tremendous. What's up, Jed?
Oh, I just want to be like, I'm with you. One, I thought that was brilliant from Grasso. I hate the world we live in because like
What is
Shevchenko, because Shevchenko's sitting there and like trying to play the game and feeling like she is getting hard done by because it's not working for her, and it shouldn't. But also, the rules aren't unified, and so in some places where they fight, you can play the game, and it's so dumb to have this like one very dumb rule be not the
All of
same.
this
And
is
we're
dumb.
like,
All of this
well, I
is dumb.
agree.
Tonight
Well,
was
yes,
a
it's
perfect
professional fist
encapsulation
fighting.
of why all of this is dumb. There's no basis of there's no
But yeah,
like baseline for
but
any of this. All
my
of this is
big
people just doing stuff and then being like,
it's all Calvin ball.
Is that gonna
It's all
work?
Calvin ball.
Yeah.
My big takeaway though from that moment was first, damn, Shevchenko's getting beat in the head right now. That probably sucks. She should stop letting that happen. And then immediately it was not great. I was like, it was just, man, why is there any ambiguity about this? Why can't we all just decide what is fine when it's fine to knee people in the head and when it's not? So she would have done something better instead of playing the game. So that was just a frustrating moment, but good on Alexa Grasso because that was some of her best offense.
Yeah. And that ties
Continue,
into maybe
Shaheen.
the second aside that I just wanted to say here, which is I am truly, truly impressed at this point with who Alexa Grasso has become. Because I'll be honest, I did not see this coming, right? Like the evolution of what she has sort of achieved with this final form. she showed tonight that the first fight was clearly no fluke. And she also showed that, like, results or not, whether she got the win or not, flyweight Alexa Grasso is very much for real. And that is a staggering fact, considering that, like, 4 years ago, basically to the day, more or less 4 years ago, she was 2-3 over her last 5, and she lost the fight to Carla to put herself on that slump. Like, she looked like someone who, I mean, obviously entering from Invicta, there was a lot of hype around her and Aldana. There was just this idea of like, hey, these two Mexican fighters, these two Mexican women are going to come into here. They look killer in Invicta, and they're going to come take the UFC by storm. And it super did not happen for a large chunk of Alexa Grasso's career. And this move to 125 is why we don't talk about it often, but like, I'm so glad the UFC ultimately instituted this division, because the 115 to 135 gap, there was just too much there, and so much talent now has found their way at 125. Alexa Grasso looks incredible, man. She looked like a world beater tonight. She looked like a champion tonight. And for her to become this all-around just demon, where she's throwing out these knees, the jab was working, all the groundwork, where, like you said, Jed, earlier, when she was getting on top of Valentina, she was just tearing her apart. And the heart that she continually shows in all of these fights, you saw it in the first fight, coming from behind to get the choke when nobody thought, or to get the submission when nobody thought she could get the submission. Tonight, fighting out of the guillotine, pulling it out in these final few rounds, even pulling a 10-8 in the round 5, whether you agree or not. Like, the heart that she shows out there, man, combined with the skill set and the talent of what she has truly become, frankly incredible. Because I super did not see this coming. And I was still a little bit I still doubted it a little bit after that first one, because it was somewhat of I wouldn't say fluky, but it was one of those things of just like, is this for real? And no questions. This is obviously for real.
Is this a safe space? Are we in the circle of trust?
Oh boy.
I still have some doubts.
Really?
Not about her, not about her heart or toughness or anything like this, but like, I mean, I scored this fight for her. I thought she won, and there were parts of what happened tonight that was just tremendous. There were also parts of it that were really bad. Like,
she's fighting Valentina Shevchenko, man.
She is, and that's why this was like a really fun but interesting fight. Like, Valentina Shevchenko, one of the greatest of all time, like a terrific fighter. Grasso simply couldn't work around a jab. Like, could not figure out how to work around this jab. And other people who are smarter than I am are going to go into deeper about this week, because I don't know all the answers, but it is so evident that, like, just fighting Val in Southpaw, like, totally jacked her up. Like, that first round, for like the 2 minutes when Grasso was in orthodox and Shevchenko's whipping the body kick and her offense is in rhythm and she's looking really strong to start. As soon as it switched back, it was just like, oh, all I can do is jab. Like, that's the only thing she could do to a fellow Southpaw. And then Grasso couldn't even figure out a way around. Like, there were some, I would say, problems. The whole thing is great. Like, the outcome, the heart, what she showed, her grappling, but like, I don't know. You choked her out the first fight. Every second you were in dominant position in this fight, you were smothering the life out of her. Maybe go to a takedown before the last minute of the final round of the fight and see if that works for you. Like,
she also knocked her down, though. She was finding
questions.
success in various aspects of the striking.
She did, and that's the thing.
I feel like you are deeply underrating what we've seen her do twice now to one of the greatest female fighters in the history of sports.
I don't think I'm underrating. I think it's just a weird thing where she has had really great moments in these fights. She's also had pretty bad moments in these fights. It's hard to pin it down, but the ebbs and flows of this fight felt more to me like the opposite woman's failure than the successful woman's successes, if that makes sense.
It's not that simple, though. It's not like she's fighting you or I in there. She's fighting someone who's so complex and so tricky and so dangerous. Like, I don't think it's nearly as simple as you're making it out to be. A lot of people have lost fights because they can't figure out how to get around a jab. That feels like a very gross sort of minimalization of what we're watching.
I mean, but she's going to have a jab, and you spent ostensibly this whole camp preparing, and you still struggled so hard with it that's for a good jab.
That's a good jab.
It is, but if Val doesn't go for the most boneheaded throw in recent memory, probably the most heaved of a move since Chris Weidman did a spinning attack on Luke Rockhold, The entire narrative is
We're talking about the
man,
first fight or this fight?
this fight.
Oh,
This is the first
okay,
fight was
because
not
she
a the
because
first
she did
fight
the
was a
same. She
spinning
did.
back.
Okay, yeah, because
This
she
is a
does.
spinning back fist, I think,
Val
but
makes crazy mistakes in fights.
I don't. So that's the thing is, I don't think in the first fight that's a mistake. Valentina Shevchenko went for a spinning back kick. It's a weapon for her. That was Grasso being drilled and timed on a trigger and motioning on it. That's nothing but upside for her.
She didn't throw that at
Nothing
all
but-
at this fight, real quick.
No, she didn't. She didn't spin at all.
No.
Okay.
Except for that one time when she wasn't spinning, she was trying a head and arm throw, which is idiotic. But if that doesn't happen, then this whole fight is wow. Down the stretch, Grasso ran out of answers, and we are talking a lot of it. But it's like when the answer was just the jab, like your only answer was to go to southpaw, and that took a lot of her things away. But why weren't you mixing things up a little more effectively? Like I said, I'm not saying she's a bad fighter. I think she's the best flyweight in the world that's not named Aaron Blanchfield. But I still just have questions about like the whole piece of her game at this point, because there are weaknesses. Like she is not a champion who is bulletproof. There are flaws, and that makes her really compelling, but I still have questions.
Well, we shall see, and we shall see where she will go from here. We'll take some questions here about some different things. First one, we kind of touched on this, but Shaheen, I'll start with you. Was this draw the best outcome for everyone? And I don't think it's the best outcome for everyone, but Valentina could do anything, but knowing her, she'll demand a third fight or we'll fight in an eliminator. Best outcome for everyone here.
Before you answer that, Shane, real quick, I did a poll. I just asked, who do you think won the fight? On our listeners right now, 46% for Grasso, 45% for Shevchenko, and the rest being draw.
It's right
that's
outcome.
why I keep
essentially a draw.
It's right outcome.
And if you look at MMA decisions, it's incredible. The fan basically is split 50-50 between Grasso and Shevchenko with the media, and the fans themselves. 47.8% had Grasso. 47.8% had Shevchenko, the rest being a draw. This fight is as close as I've ever seen between media and fans. It's actually very incredible.
Yeah.
So I just want to get that out there before we go on.
And that's what I go back to. I like the result a lot, actually. Ultimately,
don't
I just don't like the process. The process of how we got here is infuriating.
This is round two. It's a different feeling.
Yeah, if this is just a 10-8 round two, super different conversation.
Yeah. Who scored the fifth round? I'm curious. Who scored the fifth round for Aljamain Sterling against Henry Cejudo? Was it Mike? Was that Mike Bell too?
Oh, I can look real quick.
I'm curious. I don't know if it was, but I'm throwing that out because that was the other like super weird one, where like in a world where the fifth round was scored appropriately, like Henry Cejudo's the bantamweight champion and not Sean O'Malley.
What event was that?
No, Michael Bell scored. It was Derek Cleary that scored.
Yeah. Derek Cleary. Okay. Derek Cleary.
But Michael Bell was also judging that card, and he scored the fifth round for Cejudo. So,
yes, which is the right call.
And Michael Bell.
But think about if that
Mike
fifth
Bell
round
is a good judge.
Mike Bell is usually a good judge.
He's good.
This is why I really wish
a weird one.
There was some level of.
I've already explained it.
I would have just loved to hear from him.
I'm so certain that this was I made an oopsie, and so she's gonna get an 8 because that will correct my oopsie. It's like I'm so certain that's what happened here, honestly.
It is what it is. All things considered, I just can't get over the fact that 4 years ago this woman was 2-3 in the last 5 and really looked like somebody who was just not going to become this. And then now we're having legitimate conversations about her kind of beating Valentina Shevchenko twice in a row. Like that's
I think that's a great point, Shaheen, because I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. The improvement she has made, I still do have questions, but she's come astonishingly far in the last few years.
Absolutely.
We say that about Grasso, but it sounds like we could be saying the same thing about. I mean, I don't want to talk about Strickland is Adesanya too much, but I mean, what Strickland did.
Strickland was like.
Is it almost the same? Like I could not see him being champ. Like just like we're saying about Grasso, I could not see Grasso being champ. Even though we're kind of saying a couple years ago with Strickland, we were saying it last week.
Yeah, but we did this. We did this after Strickland, where like you look through his resume, it's not that bad. There's never a stretch where he's 2-3 over 5, and you're kind of wondering whether he belongs in this sort of conversation. Like he was losing to the guys you'd think he'd lose to, an Usman, those type of
Different weight
figures.
class?
But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it's comparable, but it's certainly like it's another example which we see many. You can't judge these fighters when they're
Or
midway through their career, right?
We give up on
Like,
them way too soon, or
yeah.
we push them way too fast. So that's the beauty of everything. of this sport.
Colorado wins it in double overtime, by the way, guys.
Golly, man.
Oh, man.
Dion
Coach
can't
Prime
lose.
squeaking one out over Colorado State in double OT.
I don't know anyone who goes to Colorado, so I'm good.
Did Colorado
Deion
State
Sanders
go
is
for a
the
hand
coach.
and arm? Did Colorado State go for a hand and arm throw?
No, they got put on like 4th and 10, and they just couldn't get there. So their defense was awful in overtime, but
All right.
So
hit a
the
couple
head and arm
questions.
throw. What an impossible
we'll
chuck
keep
job.
we'll keep on rolling here. This is a very interesting night because we had a judge in the main event that wasn't great. Herb Dean, Hokey Pokey Herb, was actually did a really good job in the main event. I thought he was fantastic. We had some hair,
pretty good.
We had some
lately.
hair pulling. We had some hair pulling in the Jasmine Jasdavizius Tracy Cortez fight, and that only made that much better. It wasn't called. Props to Jason Herzog for letting that thing go, but not all the refereeing was great tonight. Edgar Chairez versus Daniel Lacerda. Can we break it down? Will Edgar Chairez be successful in his appeal? So for those who don't know,
Oh, he's appealing?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
For a victory?
MMAfighting.com, great website.
Oh, sorry,
yes.
I missed that
Pretty good
news.
website.
Sorry.
It's a pretty good website. So
I'll check it
if you
out.
guys didn't watch this fight, Daniel Lacerda, who is 0-4 in the UFC with 4 stoppage losses, went in there with Edgar Chairez, and they had a fight. Edgar puts in a ghillie, looks kind of tight, and then he readjusts and then looks real tight. And Chris Taioni, I mean, the dude pulled out a monocle and was this close to looking at things. That's how close he was. He had his monocle on and everything. But unfortunately, the monocle was just on the arm of one Daniel Lacerda, but nothing else. And at first, as I'm watching this, I'm like, oh, this is the right call, because Lacerda's arm just goes completely limp. And as soon as it does, Chris Taioni jumps right in and stops the fight. And Daniel Lacerda is pissed. He immediately protests it. They go to replay. Chris Taioni, when they come back from break, says, I was wrong. I screwed that up. Apologize to Daniel Lacerda, who for a moment was 0-5 in the UFC with 5 stoppage losses, was in the history books. And then it gets overturned to a no decision. And as we reported on MMAfighting.com, Edgar Chairez is appealing this and wants to get his win. So that is kind of the breakdown of this. So Shaheen, 4 or 5 hours later, what do you make of this? And does Edgar Chairez have any chance of being successful with this appeal?
No, he has 0 chance. This is absolutely not going to work. I hate to spoil it for him, but there's 0 chance that he's going to. What are you expecting to get out of this? A win? Because you're not going to get a win. It's already a no contest. They can't just run it back. They should have been able to just run it back in the cage. It's very dumb that you can't just resume the fight from the offending position. But to answer your first question, I almost just want to go to Casey, because Casey felt very, very strongly about this in the moment.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
He might have mellowed since we've seen Casey tonight.
He was very much spacing out while I was talking. I could tell right there.
Yeah. Chris Taioni, he screwed up, and okay. The big thing, we say the arm went limp. First of all, I didn't go limp, because if you look at the replay, he never actually checks his arm if it's limp. He literally, what's the guy that lost?
It appeared to go limp.
It appears to go limp, but he was stuck in the guillotine. He just puts his arm down. And if you notice, Grasso did pretty much the same thing, but she was on her back. She was stuck in that guillotine, and she goes, "Oh wait, never mind. I'm just gonna relax."
Being on her back doesn't bring gravity into play, which is a problem.
Yeah. And like what I kept saying about Taioni, if he's going limp, what happened to his legs? His legs did not go limp. Think of the John Jones Machida thing. Like when Machida went out, his legs went out and he fell down. So somehow this guy is only his arm goes limp and his legs were still holding him underneath. Chris Taioni. He's a professional ref. He just made a mistake. And they fixed it, thankfully. And it sucks. It sucks for Edgar Chairez. It sucks. It just sucks, because he was most likely on his way to winning that fight. Maybe not that submission, but he was going to win the fight eventually. And Chris Taioni kind of screwed it up for him.
Yeah. I think he was going to win with that submission.
I don't. He might have had to readjust He might have had to readjust the submission and thing. But the position he was in right then,
Yeah.
he was not getting the submission right then. But he could have
Maybe.
readjusted for it.
But
Maybe not.
now on the other side, Daniel Luzardo may or may not have already broken the UFC record for most UFC appearances without a win. So that's a fun thing.
I think this is
History. We saw history tonight.
History
No.
in making.
No,
He's at least
other
top 3. I'm sure there's some weird stuff that I can.
No. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fighters. The wonderful AK Lee actually pulled this together this week, who are 0-5 in the UFC, with including no contest. So he joins that illustrious group, which includes people like Pat Healy. Shaheen, I know you stand opposed to that one,
I
but rules
thoroughly
rules.
disagree with that. I watched Pat Healy beat
Sean
Jim Miller. I
Soriano.
do not care how high he was during it.
Jesse Ronson. I'm sorry. If we don't follow the rules, we live with the animals, Shaheen, and he broke them. John Alessio also 0-5. So he does join a very elite group of people. And since he probably gets another shot, maybe he's the first one to go 0-6. So there's that.
That is on the table now.
I think so we did something like this not that long ago, and I said the same thing. Like, it's an unfortunate circumstance. I don't blame Tyone that much. I don't think he was like perfect operations, but
why did he grab his freaking arm and lift it? He didn't grab his arm.
Yeah, like he could have done that.
It's not like he's
also
getting
it also
in the
would have been
face
like a
while
little
he's knocked
weird.
out. Like there's not a crazy sense of immediate urgency there.
So that's part of that. Like that's my only real thing is like it's a blood choke. Like you're fine if he goes out. Like he can hold it for another second or two. But like ultimately, I totally get why he did it. Because it looked like he went to sleep. Like he probably should have checked the arm, but it was like a little awkward against the cage, and that may have been tougher. And it looked like his arm does just drop, and it's something similar happened with Robbie Lawler, Ben Askren. It's not a great circumstance, but he owned up to it, and that's really all you can ask. You know, reffing's hard. Mistakes are going to get made.
It is hard. Yes.
It's really tough. Sometimes things are going to happen. It's unfortunate. But you know, they did the best they could with the thing. And then the rest of the conversation is, like you guys mentioned, ways to make this better. Hey, we can just restart this fight. Like that'd be okay. Figure out how to solve things like this in ways that don't adversely affect the fighter when they happen, because you put on 1,000 fights a year. A couple of them are going to get wonky. That's just the law of numbers.
Yeah. How about Edgar Chairez? What a year that man has had. He was in a submission. He was part of a winning submission hold that went on way too long for Fury FC. That almost killed a freaking dude and like ripped the dude's arm apart.
Yeah, that was...
It's pinned to my Twitter if you guys haven't seen that or anything about it. Did a whole breakdown of that. Edgar was a part of that fight. Gets signed to the UFC next. Steps in on short notice on a pay-per-view. Has a fun fight, and now he's on the end of like a submission that was stopped too short, and now he's appealing. It's been a year for that dude. Holy shit. So
really
something else to,
in all angles.
Hey,
every aspect
you know the guy that he
everything.
That Gianni Vasquez, the guy that he actually
Yes.
almost killed. I actually saw
He's
his
champion.
last fight. Yeah,
He's
at
a champ.
UNF, and it was legit one of the best regional fights I've ever seen too. So yeah, so that guy's back on his horse. So yeah. Crazy,
and
crazy
since
time.
you brought up one young Johnny Vasquez, I spoke with the man last week about that win and about everything going on with his fight against Texas. So stay tuned for that. I'm just trying to squeeze out a time frame to get that out and figure out a way to put that out to you. A little follow up to the big story from earlier. I forgot Mike Bell also gave a 30-24 scorecard earlier today for the first fight of the night.
Oh,
Josephine Knudsen. I didn't hate that one at all. I thought those are all 10.
I didn't watch a second of that fight.
Hey, remember, yeah, and that was a 30-24, and then one ref gave it one judge gave it a 30-27. So we should have anticipated we're going to have some 10-8 tomfoolery by the main event.
Yeah, but these were like okay.
Anytime you turn a TV on to watch fist fighting,
Casey, that's the thing.
In 15 minutes,
I thought we were going to have 10-8 tomfoolery. I just didn't think Grasso won I thought Grasso won the fourth, and so I thought it was going to be a 48-47 scorecard for her. And then when it didn't, I was like, okay, I guess some people in our Slack had said that Shevchenko won it, and that I was like, okay, I guess Grasso got round 2, and they gave Chevy the fourth, and then it was like round 5. Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
I'm actually interested in
Um,
round 4. Was round 4? Who won? How did you score round 4? Was that a close round? Round 4?
I gave 4 to
It was
Grasso,
very
but it was
I
the
gave
most
4 to
competitive
Grasso.
round. I thought
Okay, because
it was
one judge
Extremely
gave it to-
competitive, but I thought the
few
knees were the
judge gave it
most
to Shevchenko.
meaningful
the knees.
sequence of
The knees
of that
sold it
round.
to me.
Yeah.
The knees were the difference for me in that round.
So,
I
yeah,
scored it for Shevchenko. The knees made it a closer conversation, but I still gave it to Shevchenko. 2 of the judges also gave it to Shevchenko. I believe Mike Bell was one of those judges, if memory serves me correctly.
No,
He was,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yes, because he had
Right.
Which
to
is
correct.
Because
it.
then
Wild
he
to
had
look.
to make up for his error
Yeah,
at the end.
It was a makeup call.
It was
Look,
Yep.
you watch
It sure
it. You
was.
watch a football game, and they don't call the face mask penalty that results in a touchdown. Next time they get down the field, they let the O-line get away with like an egregious hold. Happens all the time. He just did it in a very public setting on ESPN Plus. It's okay.
This just
I
proves
see you, Mike Bell. It's fine.
mixed martial arts is a sport. That's all it is. See?
Hey,
It's-
there we go.
It's very exciting tonight, guys. Can we
I mean,
briefly?
unless it's yes, please.
Can we briefly before we go? Well, I don't know if we're answering more questions.
Let's
I wanted
get
to bring
one
up 2
more.
more.
We got to get out of here.
Oh, if we've got
yeah.
2
Oh,
minutes,
sorry.
then,
Okay.
All right, we'll do one more.
Maybe
We'll do one
these
more.
questions. Maybe these questions will be what I was going to say. So let's find out.
Well, I wanted to bring this up because I thought Tracy Cortez was one of the stars of the show tonight. The only girl to beat Erin Blanchfield. I don't know if you actually watched that fight, but she didn't win that fight. She did technically win that fight.
But it
Beat Erin
looks good on the Wikipedia.
It sure does. And she looked good tonight.
Beat her.
Yes. She's the only girl to beat Erin Blanchfield and look good tonight versus a surging Jasmine Jastovicius while coming off of a long layoff. Is she a top contender if she can fight with regularity? And that's something you and I talked about, Casey, on the People's Pre-Fight show. And this is something, Shaheen, that I thought was very interesting coming from Tracy Cortez, saying, hey, I know you guys haven't seen me for a while. I got heart for days. And guess what? I'm going to come for that belt. Not in 3 years, not in 4 years. Next year, I'm going to be the champion. She plans on being active and getting to the belt. So thoughts on Tracy's performance after the long layoff and her saying, hey, I'm chasing the belt next year. So be ready for me.
I thought it was a very impressive performance. I hope she's telling the truth about the activity level, because this is somebody who been in the UFC 5 years now, and it's literally for 1 fight a year. Like we've not seen her twice in a single year throughout her time. And I've been impressed, man. I feel like her evolution, you can just see it. Like she has grown leaps and bounds since who she debuted as coming off Invicta. But I don't know, man. I hope that she can find the level of activity that she needs to sort of become someone who matters in this division. Because she reminds me of sort of how Arnold Allen took a really long time to become a contender in the featherweight division, because he was just kind of fighting once a year against a rando, and then you wouldn't remember it because he'd be gone so long, and then all of a sudden there he is again fighting against a rando, and he'd win. And you look at it, it's Arnold Allen is like 5-0 in the UFC, but he's not mentioned at all when we talk about people who matter in that division. And then he was able to find consistency and fight a little bit more often, and now he is he's that guy. I hope that Tracy Cortez can make that push, because I'm really intrigued to see who she can become, especially because, man, I know that it may feel like something just to be said or that something that people would just throw out of what she was dealing with Henry Cejudo's sister tragically passing away yesterday. But that is very meaningful. Like, the Cejudo family has been very important to Tracy Cortez. If you sort of look at her backstory and her history, like when she calls her big sister, I believe her. Like they've been very important to sort of getting her where she is and bringing her through some really tough times. And for Henry Cejudo's sister to pass away yesterday, and to be able to push through that and have a performance like this today on a really big stage like this, not fighting for more than a year, that's impressive, man. Just emotionally, like as a human, to be able to push through those emotions and perform. I was super impressed.
Great fight. Great performance. Jed, I'm going to bring up a different name for you. Lupi Godinez. You went on No Bets Barred. You predicted she would get a win inside the distance. I think there was a moment in that fight where you were like, maybe she won't get it inside the distance. But, man, she peppered that face. And then, like, immediately, like, after the last punch landed, she already had a poor Elise Reed up in the sky. Somehow she punched her in the face and still lifted her up in the air and slammed her to the ground all in one motion. It was incredible. Lupi Godinez, What did you think of her performance tonight? How high are you on her after this showing at 115 pounds?
One, let's just start with Lupe Godinez is dope. Two, I need to put you guys in the correct mind frame of the day I've been having because I hadn't been. It's been around. Wake up this morning, I'm very excited. Atlanta United game. Inter Miami's in town. This guy named Leo Messi plays for Inter Miami. It's gonna be great. We're gonna have a fun time. The family came in. We're gonna go see it. Oh, what's that? Oh, Lionel Messi is not. Even in Atlanta, didn't even fly up to wave at people while he sits on the sidelines. Tough beat, particularly when you look at the retail value of those tickets. Go have a good time anyway, except for that game's going on the same time. My beloved Georgia Bulldogs, South Carolina in town, supposed to womp them. We're like 20-point favorites, 14-3 for South Carolina at half. Not the vibes all day were off. And then I get home, I'm watching this fight. I've got a loopy inside the distance. She breaks the woman's arm. I don't understand.
That was ridiculous, man.
I just don't understand the arm angles. Is that what MMA angles are? Because it was 90 degrees to her elbow. Like I remember when I used to train, like they were like, not everybody can't break everybody's arm. Some people are just really bendable, and I never came across a person that was super that way. And I guess Elise Reed is. I don't get it. And then she finished her anyway. And I was like, this is just going to be a day of awful beats. And then even up until the finish, I was terrified because she is lamping her against the cage, killing her. And then she goes for the takedown. And one, credit to Lupe, she's got some high amplitude tosses when she gets in on you. She can chuck a woman in the air like few others in this weight class. But I was concerned. Totally fine in the end. She just rolls over. I don't know what her ceiling is because, she suffered some losses. But when she's on, she's game to give anybody a damn good fight. And she's just one of the most fun fighters to watch, in the strawweight division right now. She's just gas. So terrific performance against, Elise Reed, who's competent, but I wouldn't say like a great fighter. Yeah, it was awesome. Really, really fun.
And then Casey, real quick, who impressed you the most tonight? Daniel Zellhuber, Roman Kopylov, or Charlie Campbell?
Ooh.
There's a right answer, Casey. There's a right answer. You picked the right answer, Casey.
I wasn't gonna say Loopy, but of those choices, I'm gonna go. Can I go Zellhuber? No, is that the right answer? Oh, what's the right answer?
Kopylov. Kopylov is the right answer.
Definitely Kopylov.
One,
Zellhuber had the Anaconda was awesome though. Like that was super slick.
It's dope, but also Zellhuber looks like a middleweight fighting a lightweight, so you got to dock him points for that. And I like Zellhuber and rib roasters, baby. Kopylov with the burners, the answer will always be body shot KO for me.
I have long arms, so I'm very. When I saw the Anaconda off after stuffing the takedown, getting the headlock, and then going for the Anaconda, it just made my heart skip a beat. It made my heart skip a beat. I was just like,
should use those long arms to punch that dude in the body. Work the body.
Yeah, that liver shot, that liver roasting was very beautiful. Also,
it was so
a lot of great violence tonight.
It was so good.
Go ahead, Shaheen.
Can I just ask all you? We can close on this.
Yes.
Roman Kopylov, 4 in a row now. Loses his first 2 in the UFC. Kind of didn't look super great in them. And now all of a sudden 4 in a row knockouts. How for real do we think this is? Dude looked pretty good, man.
I feel a little bit vindicated, Shaheen. I feel a little vindicated with this one. We'll talk more about this on the next one tomorrow because I think we're going to automatically bump Roman up to an official pick for the main card because I think he deserves it. But after that second loss, everybody had given up on the man. Oh, he's one fight away from getting cut. You know who didn't? You know who used him as a wild card, even coming off of a loss because I believed in him so much? This guy right here. This dude right here. And he's paid it off for me. 4 straight finishes. Dude's good. Dude's real, real good.
I can't look at him and just think it's just Chase Hooper on the juice.
That's the thing. His looks belie like what actually
he needs a rebrand
brings to the cage.
Yeah.
So who actually won this fight? Is this a win for Chris Curtis or Anthony Hernandez? Since these guys both replaced those two guys.
I don't remember how we tracked this down in the pre-show, because this was an easier one. I think Cynthia Calvillo lost tonight, if I'm remembering the main card, the first fight of the night opener, but I could be wrong. I don't know. You know what? I'll get with the mathologists and we'll figure out who were the ancillary winners and losers in the thesisship of this fight event.
Because Kopylov
Shaheen-
is supposed to fight Hernandez, so technically it's Chris Curtis then.
I guess so.
Yep,
But Shaheen, to your
congratulations, Chris
point, one, he's a 5-time world combat sambo champion. And if you look at the history of world combat sambo champions in MMA,
They do
and
pretty well.
the UFC,
They tend to do pretty well.
particularly multiple time world champions. It's a very strong base for mixed martial arts. Odd to lose to the dudes that he lost to. At the same time, look great, but also like tough to know how good, because Josh Frimm, Punahil Soriano,
That's the
Cody
thing. We just haven't
Ribeiro,
seen the competition. Right?
Alessio De Chico, like these are guys who are not bad fighters by any stretch, but like that's a pretty clear tier of guy at middleweight and not a top tier of guy. So I don't know, but I mean, it's on a great run. I think he's going to get a shot at top 15 guy next. So that'll be the one where we can really determine. But five-time World Combat Sambo champion.
Do we
Always
just chuck him in
respect
there
that,
with?
you know?
Do we just give him either Chris Curtis or Anthony Hernandez, whoever's ready first?
Yes, I think that's totally fine.
I agree.
I like that. I like
Seems
that.
good. Chris
I don't know,
Curtis.
let's see if he can get past a boost.
Look, if he gets
Oh,
past,
God, you know what
Booth, he's
happens when you
fighting,
get a
he's
Booth?
fighting
Well,
for the
that's the
belt.
road to a title, baby.
Fighting for the belt.
We
Before we
ready?
close it down, I do want to
please.
ask one thing. I just want us to take and appreciate how lucky we are, because I've been following this sport for 20 years, I think. I think this is my 20th year of fandom. Maybe it's one less or one more, give or take. I think here, September 17th at 2:40, I'm willing to call it. Stop the fight. Match is over. This is the funniest year in MMA history. I do not think a collection of funnier outcomes have happened, and we still have like the whole back stretch of the year. I mean, Sean O'Malley winning, Sean Strickland winning, this fight ending in a draw. Like that is a series of heaters right down. Not to mention at the beginning of the year, we got the whole light heavyweight, whatever that was, in a here's our new title fight. And then by the summer, the guy they crowned champion blows his Achilles. Aaron Rodgers is himself out of the company for the next 9 months. He says he's vacating the belt. He's sitting in a sombrero cage side for this, and they're still calling him the champion, despite the fact that I believe they are working on a title fight between Alex Pereira and Yuri Brashka. This is
They didn't
the
even get-
funniest freaking year of all time, man.
They didn't even
You
put the
forgot-
press release out before they took Yuri out of the title.
It's the
Before they
best.
officially stripped Yuri of the belt.
But
It's
Jed,
crazy.
you actually forgot the funniest part of the whole year. Is
Which
that
one?
the fact that Chandler Connor is not actually happening.
Yeah, not even
That's
happening.
You know what?
Like,
That's fair.
it's
That's the
so-
funniest part of the whole
That's
year.
actually really funny.
Michael
Oh,
Chandler
you
threw a year of his career away. For
Dude, the whole
fight.
Bellator PFL stuff is hilarious. Francis is gonna knock out Tyson Fury at this rate. This is the funniest year. I've had so much fun. There have been so many post shows where I've just been like, this is incredible and hilarious. And I mean, even Grasso beating Shevchenko the way she did and me taking that L is funny as hell. Like, this has just been a chef's kiss year for humor. I love this sport so much.
I love what you're saying.
Oh, you're good.
Would be the funniest year ever. No, keep the music. Music can go. It's fine.
Oh no, it's in the background, just very slightly.
These
Yes,
things-
this is the track. Stipe can win the title.
Nice.
Charles
Versus Dada 5000 happened in 2016.
No, that's the
That's all it
funniest
takes.
fight. That's the
I know,
funniest.
that makes
fight.
the year the funniest. That's the GOAT fight. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
it is.
No, that is the GOAT fight, but this year has too many other funny moments. It's best. I've had so much fun this year.
And I have so much fun sharing these moments in the aftermath with all of you, not just the men who are on the screen here, but all of you watching this
I need
program
to
right now.
find the
But we are
other
done.
Funniest outcomes that can happen for the rest of this year. I mean, Stipe
That is a
winning
good
is
article.
obviously Stipe
Yeah.
winning is
Stipe
obviously the
winning
funniest.
will make this the funniest.
This would be the fun. I came up with the funniest one on Heck of a Morning, by the way. The funniest one would be they book Yuri versus Alex in December. Something happens with Alex, and Sean Strickland steps in on short notice because nobody else is available.
I knew where you
and
were
he becomes
going
a
immediately,
two-division
and that's the
champion.
best.
That would be the funniest thing.
Oh my god!
Oh,
Because he would say
amazing.
yes. He would
I
absolutely say
haven't
yes.
even thought of that. Now I kind of want that.
I kind of
This-
wanted to.
What a year.
Oh,
What?
it'd be just the best. All right, but we're done, everybody. Thank you so much for Shaheen, for Jed, for Casey. I am Mike Heck. Next week, they're back at the Hallowed Apex. That's just how you want to follow up an event like this.
3
Go
events
back
in a
to
row,
the
baby.
Apex.
3
Yes, we
events
get
in
a-
a row.
We have a hell of a main event next week. We got Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael Fiziev, which is just going to kick ass. We get Danny Gay versus Bryce Mitchell. Not a bad one. Not a bad one, but we are back at the Apex. So thank you very much. On to the next one
Actually, a
tomorrow.
decent Apex card.
MAR on Monday. It's going to be fun. Thank you all very much. Good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
Sean Strickland, 2-division champion.
Two-division champion. What
I think
a
it's
world.
funnier if he fights Alex Pereira for the light heavyweight title.
Oh,
No,
I
Yuri
can't-
would
Yuri
be
going down
funny.
again. Yeah.